The air in the small backyard buzzed with the cheerful chaos of a child's birthday party. Balloons in shades of pink and purple danced in the gentle breeze, tethered to the backs of chairs and the low-hanging branches of the old oak tree. Laughter erupted in waves as a dozen 7-year-olds played games, their faces sticky with sugar and joy. At the center of it all was my daughter, Mia, her eyes sparkling brighter than the single candle that would soon grace her cake. She was a whirlwind of happiness, her new birthday dress a blur of motion as she darted between friends. My heart swelled watching her. Every parent thinks their child is special, but Mia possessed a light, a pure and uncomplicated goodness that seemed to touch everyone she met. Seeing her so happy was the only gift I needed. My cousin Olivia stood near the refreshments table, scrolling through her phone with an air of detached boredom. Olivia had always been different. We grew up like sisters, but where I found joy in simple things, she chased status and appearance. She'd married well, lived in a large house in the city, and never missed an opportunity to remind everyone of her good fortune. Her presence at Mia's humble party felt less like a genuine gesture and more like an obligation she was begrudgingly fulfilling. The time for presents arrived, and Mia sat on the grass, a small queen on her makeshift throne, surrounded by a mountain of brightly wrapped boxes. Each gift was met with gasps of delight and sincere, heartfelt thank yous. Then Olivia stepped forward. She was holding a thin, unwrapped book, pinched between her thumb and forefinger as if it were something unpleasant. "Here you go, sweetie," she said, her voice lacking the warmth of the sunny afternoon. She handed the book to Mia. It was a coloring book. The cover depicted a smiling cartoon unicorn, but it was noticeably worn, the corners soft and bent. As Mia opened it, my breath caught in my throat. The first dozen pages were already filled in. Not just a few scribbles, but completed, colored-in pages. Some were neat, staying within the lines. Others were a chaotic mess of crayon, as if done by a much younger child. A wave of heat washed over my face. It was a used coloring book, a regifted secondhand thought. The other parents sitting nearby exchanged subtle, knowing glances. I saw a flicker of pity in one mother's eyes before she quickly looked away. Humiliation stung me, sharp and bitter. It wasn't about the monetary value, it was about the thoughtlessness, the sheer disrespect shown to my daughter on her special day. Olivia hadn't just given Mia a used book. She had made a statement. She was telling us exactly what she thought we were worth. Mia, in her sweet innocence, just tilted her head. "Thank you, Aunt Olivia," she said politely, tracing a finger over a half-colored mermaid. "Some of it is already done for me. That's silly." She laughed her tinkling, carefree laugh and placed the book on the pile with the others, her attention already captured by the next brightly wrapped gift. But I couldn't let it go. The sight of that book sat like a stone in my stomach. Throughout the rest of the gift opening, and as I served slices of cake, Olivia's casual cruelty replayed in my mind. She stood there checking her watch, completely oblivious, or perhaps indifferent, to the insult she had delivered. It was then, as I placed a slice of rainbow cake in front of Mia, that I decided I wouldn't let it slide. Not this time. When everyone started singing Happy Birthday, a different kind of plan began to form in my mind. The speech I was about to give during cake time would be one Olivia, and everyone else, would not soon forget. The last notes of Happy Birthday faded, leaving behind the pleasant murmur of parents chatting and children giggling, their mouths ringed with blue and purple frosting. I moved through the small crowd, a smile fixed on my face, making sure every child had a slice of cake and every parent a fresh drink. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat beneath the placid surface I projected. Olivia was leaning against the old oak, phone in hand again, a picture of aloof disinterest. She hadn't even touched her cake. "Can I have everyone's attention for just a moment?" I called out, my voice a little louder than usual, cutting through the chatter. The conversations dwindled as heads turned my way. Mia looked up at me, her face a perfect picture of adoration, a smudge of frosting on her cheek. I gave her a quick, reassuring wink. "I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for coming to celebrate Mia's 7th birthday," I began, my voice steady. "It means the world to us to have our friends and family here. And thank you all so much for your thoughtful and generous gifts. Mia has been so excited, and she loves every single one." I let my eyes sweep across the parents, giving them all a genuine smile. Then my gaze landed on Olivia. I held it there. "Presents are a funny thing, aren't they?" I continued, my tone shifting from cheerful to contemplative. "It's not about the price tag, of course. We all know that. It's about the thought behind it. A gift is a message. It says, 'I was thinking of you.' I took a moment out of my day to choose something that I thought would make you happy. I paused and walked over to the pile of discarded wrapping paper and presents. I sifted through them for a moment before my fingers closed around the thin, worn coloring book. I held it up for everyone to see, the smiling cartoon unicorn on the cover seeming to mock the situation. "Take this, for example," I said, my voice dangerously sweet. "Olivia, this was so unique." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her straighten up, a flicker of surprise on her face. "I have to admit, I've never seen anything quite like it. It's a coloring book where the first 12 pages are already filled in." A thick, uncomfortable silence fell over the backyard. The only sound was a lone bird chirping in the oak tree. I could feel the collective intake of breath from the other parents. They were frozen, watching a drama they hadn't expected unfold. At first, I was a little confused. I went on, turning the book over in my hands as if studying a strange artifact. I thought, maybe it's a new kind of book, a buddy coloring book where you complete the work someone else started. But I don't think that's it. I think you just gave my 7-year-old daughter a used, half-finished coloring book that you probably found lying around your house. Olivia's face, which had been pale with shock, was now flooding with crimson. Her mouth opened and closed silently, like a fish gasping for air. She looked around, seeking an ally, but found only the averted gazes of the other parents. "And you know, the message that sends is a little different," I said, my voice dropping, but each word clear and sharp as shattered glass. "It says, I couldn't be bothered. Your daughter is an afterthought. It says, here is something I was going to throw away, but I'll give it to you instead. My daughter and my family are not your secondhand thoughts, Olivia. We are not your charity case. So thank you for the gift. It has been incredibly illuminating." I dropped the book back onto the pile of presents with a soft thud that echoed in the profound silence. I turned and looked directly at Olivia, whose eyes were now blazing with a mixture of pure humiliation and white-hot fury. The party was over. Not in minutes or hours, but in that exact heart-stopping moment. The festive air had evaporated, replaced by a tension so thick you could cut it with a cake knife. Mia was looking back and forth between me and Olivia, her brow furrowed in confusion, the joy of her birthday party suddenly extinguished. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the feeling. And right now, the feeling was awful. For a long moment, nobody moved. The tableau was frozen. Me by the gift pile, Olivia under the tree, her face a mask of fury, and the other parents scattered between us like statues in a museum of social awkwardness. Mia had put down her fork, her slice of cake forgotten. Her big eyes, which had been so full of light just moments before, were now clouded with confusion and the beginnings of tears. It was Olivia who broke the spell. She snatched her designer handbag from the ground, her movements sharp and jerky. "How dare you!" she hissed, her voice low and trembling with rage. She didn't shout, which was somehow more terrifying. The venom was concentrated. "You think you're so high and mighty, don't you? Standing there in your little rented house with your secondhand furniture, judging me." She took a step toward me, her eyes narrowing. "You have no idea what my life is like. You wanted a thoughtful gift? Fine. Here's a thought. I have a charity gala to plan, a trip to Europe to pack for, and a life you can only dream of. I'm sorry I didn't have time to wander through a toy store for an hour to find the perfect, meaningless piece of plastic for your child." The book was from my daughter's collection. She's outgrown it. I thought Mia might like it. It was a gesture. A gesture of contempt. I shot back, my own anger rising to meet hers. "You could have stopped at a gas station and bought a candy bar, and it would have been more thoughtful than that." "You're pathetic," she spat, the words striking me with physical force. She turned her venomous gaze to the other parents, who were now actively gathering their children, whispering urgent excuses. "Enjoy the rest of the party," she said with a sneer, her voice dripping with sarcasm. It was a command to disperse, an assertion of her social dominance even in a moment of utter humiliation. And just like that, the exodus began. "We have to be going," one mom said, avoiding my eyes as she pulled her daughter toward the gate. "Liam has a soccer game early tomorrow," said another, already halfway down the driveway. Within 5 minutes, the yard was empty. The half-eaten slices of cake, the wilting balloons, the brightly colored napkins, they were all that was left of Mia's birthday party. Olivia was the last to leave. She paused at the gate, turning back to face me. The fury had cooled in her eyes, replaced by something colder, harder. "You've made a very big mistake, Emily," she said, her voice a low promise of retribution. "You'll regret this." Then she was gone. the click of the gate latch sounding like a gunshot in the sudden quiet. I stood there for a long time, the adrenaline draining away, leaving behind a hollow, trembling emptiness. The triumph I had anticipated, the righteous satisfaction of standing up for my daughter, was nowhere to be found. I had won the battle, but the cost was devastatingly high. I had publicly shamed my cousin, and, in doing so, had brought Mia's birthday party to a screeching, ugly halt. A small, choked sob brought me back to reality. I turned to see Mia, standing by the now empty table. Big, silent tears were rolling down her cheeks, leaving clean tracks through the purple frosting. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice wobbling. "Why did everyone leave? Did I do something wrong?" My heart shattered. I rushed to her side, kneeling down and pulling her into a fierce hug. She buried her face in my shoulder, her small body shaking with sobs. I had been so focused on my own wounded pride, so intent on teaching Olivia a lesson, that I had failed to protect the one person who mattered most. I had defended her honor, but stolen her joy. As I held my weeping daughter in the ruins of her 7th birthday party, Olivia's final words echoed in my ears. "You'll regret this." I already did. "No, baby, no," I murmured, stroking Mia's hair as I held her tight. "You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing at all. This was grown-up stuff. It was messy and silly, and I am so sorry that it happened at your party." She pulled back, her big, tear-filled eyes searching mine for an explanation she could grasp. "But why was Aunt Olivia so mad? And why did you sound so angry?" I sighed, wiping a tear from her cheek with my thumb. How could I explain the years of subtle digs, the casual condescension, the complex, thorny history between her aunt and me? How could I explain that the coloring book wasn't just a book, but a symbol of 1,000 other slights? Sometimes, I started slowly, choosing my words with care, grown-ups have a hard time showing they care. And sometimes, other grown-ups get their feelings hurt and use angry words when they should use kind ones. I used angry words, and I shouldn't have. Your party wasn't the right place for that. This is my fault, Mia, not yours. I managed to coax a small, watery smile from her when I suggested we create our own, better party, just the two of us. We put on her favorite music, ate cake with our fingers straight from the pan, and opened the rest of her presents on the living room floor. She was resilient, my Mia. Before long, she was lost in the world of a new dollhouse, the earlier drama seemingly forgotten, but I couldn't forget. As she played, I began the somber task of cleaning the backyard. Each deflated balloon felt like a tiny, surrendered hope. I scraped the colorful, half-eaten cake slices into the trash, the waste a testament to the abrupt end of the celebration. Then I found it, lying forlornly on the grass, the coloring book. I picked it up and, for the first time, really looked at the pages that were filled in. The first few were colored with a childish, chaotic energy, crayons straying far outside the lines. But the later pages were neater, the colors more deliberate. This wasn't just a re-gift. It was a relic of another child's life. It felt sad. A sad, thoughtless thing that had caused so much pain. I dropped it into the trash bag with a sense of finality. I was tying the bag shut when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was my mother. My stomach twisted into a knot. I knew, even before I answered, what this was about. "Hello? Emily, what on earth did you do?" Her voice was tight with disapproval. There was no hello, no how are you. Olivia had been busy. "Mom," she gave Mia a used coloring book in front of everyone. "I heard," she cut me off. "Olivia called me, absolutely hysterical. She said she was trying to do something nice, to give Mia something of her cousin's, and you launched a vicious, calculated attack on her in front of all your guests. You publicly humiliated her." "That's not what happened. It was a dirty, used book. It was degrading. I just said that it wasn't an appropriate gift." My defense sounded weak, even to my own ears. The nuance of the situation was lost, steamrolled by Olivia's more dramatic narrative. "Emily, you know how Olivia is. She's busy. She has a lot of pressure on her. You, of all people, should know to be more gracious. Your father and I raised you to be better than that. You have to be the bigger person. Now your aunt is calling. Olivia's mother-in-law has heard about it, and the whole family is in an uproar. You need to call your cousin and apologize." "Apologize?" I asked, incredulous. "I should apologize?" "Yes, immediately," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "You started this fire, Emily. Now you need to put it out." The line went dead. I stood in the silent, trashed backyard, the phone heavy in my hand. Olivia wasn't just going to let this go. She was mounting a campaign. She was painting me as the villain, the unhinged, ungrateful sister who had viciously attacked her for a simple, if thoughtless, mistake. She was turning the one weapon she had, social influence, against me with practiced precision. I was isolated, cast as the hysterical poor relation. The full weight of Olivia's parting words, "You'll regret this," crashed down on me. The war had begun, and I had already lost the first battle. The idea of apologizing to Olivia was a hot, bitter pill I couldn't swallow. It felt like a betrayal of the very principle I had been trying to uphold. Apologize for what? For having my feelings hurt? For defending my daughter's dignity? I paced my small living room, the phone feeling like a lead weight in my hand, replaying my mother's words over and over. You started this fire. Had I? Or had I just been the one to finally call out the smoke? For 2 days, I lived in a state of self-imposed exile. I ignored the buzz of my phone, which I knew was a barrage of texts and calls from relatives demanding I make peace. I focused on Mia, taking her to the park, reading her extra stories, trying to pour enough love and normalcy into her world to wash away the memory of her ruined party. But underneath it all, a cold dread was settling in my stomach. I had poked a hornet's nest, and I was bracing for the swarm. The first real sting came on Wednesday morning. I ran a small, home-based baking business, making custom cakes and pastries for local events. It was my passion and a vital source of my income. I had a big order for the weekend. A 3-tiered wedding cake for a woman I knew casually, a friend of a friend. I had just finished baking the layers when an email notification popped up on my phone. The subject line was blunt: cancellation of cake order. My heart sank. I read the email from the bride, a woman named Sarah. Her words were polite, but cool. Hi, Emily. I'm so sorry to do this on such short notice, but we've decided to go in a different direction for our cake. Again, my apologies for any inconvenience. A different direction? I said aloud to the empty kitchen. The wedding was 3 days away. No one finds a new custom cake maker in 3 days. It made no sense. I immediately called her, a knot of anxiety tightening in my chest. She picked up on the third ring. Hello? Sarah, hi, it's Emily from Emily's Edibles. I just got your email. Is everything okay? Was there a problem with the design we discussed? There was a pause, and in that silence, I heard the telltale hesitation of someone about to deliver an uncomfortable, pre-rehearsed line. No, the design was lovely, she said, her voice strained. It's just, well, this is awkward. I heard about what happened at your daughter's birthday party. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. What did you hear? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Look, I don't want to get involved in family drama, she said quickly. But my fiancé's cousin is a friend of Olivia's, and, well, we just don't feel comfortable working with someone who would cause a scene like that. It was cruel and unhinged, from what I'm told. We just can't risk any kind of drama at our wedding. I'm sure you understand. I was speechless, cruel and unhinged. That was the story Olivia was selling, and people were buying it. She had poisoned the well, turning my small business, my livelihood, into a casualty of her scorched earth campaign. This wasn't just about family gossip anymore. This was a direct assault on my ability to support myself and my daughter. Sarah, you're hearing one side of a very complicated story, I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice. She insulted my child. Like I said, I don't want to get involved. She cut me off, her tone firm now. My decision is final. I have to go. The line went dead. I sank into a kitchen chair, staring at the 3 perfect golden cake layers cooling on the rack. They were useless now. The hours of work, the cost of the ingredients, all wasted. Olivia hadn't just made me a pariah in my family. She was methodically and maliciously dismantling my life, piece by piece, from a safe distance. The phone rang again. It was my mother. I stared at the screen, Olivia's words echoing in my mind. You have no idea what my life is like. Maybe I didn't, but I was getting a very clear picture of what she was capable of, and it was far more ruthless than I had ever imagined. Staring at the useless, cooling cakes, I felt a different kind of anger take root. It wasn't the hot, righteous fury from the party. It was a cold, quiet determination. My mother's voice echoed in my head, telling me to put out the fire I had started. But Olivia was the one pouring gasoline on it. Apologizing now would be an admission of guilt I didn't feel, and it wouldn't stop her. She saw me as weak, as someone she could crush without consequence. The only way to stop a bully is to stand up to them. But another shouting match would only feed her narrative that I was unhinged. I needed a different weapon. My mind snagged on the one piece of physical evidence, the coloring book. I had thrown it in the trash, a symbol of the whole ugly affair. On a desperate impulse, I went outside to the trash bins by the side of the house. I untied the black bag, the smell of stale cake and discarded party favors filling the air. I reached in and pulled it out, grimacing. Back in the clean light of my kitchen, I examined it properly for the first time, not as an insult, but as an object. It was old, the pages yellowed and soft. I flipped past the first dozen colored-in pages and looked at the ones that were still blank. And then, on the inside of the back cover, I saw it. Tucked in the corner was a small, neat inscription in a child's careful cursive. Olivia Jensen, age 8. It wasn't her daughter's book. It was hers. Suddenly, the sequence of the coloring made a chilling sort of sense. The first few pages, a chaotic scrawl of wax, were Olivia as a toddler. The later, neater pages, where the mermaid was meticulously colored with careful shading, were from when she was older, maybe Mia's age. The same age as the name written on the back cover. She hadn't given Mia a second-hand gift from her daughter. She had given her a discarded piece of her own childhood without even realizing it. The thoughtlessness of the act was somehow magnified. She was so detached, so intent on finding a token to dispose of, that she had accidentally thrown away a part of herself. Clutching the book, I knew what I had to do. I didn't call. I didn't text. I got in my car and drove the 45 minutes to her immaculate suburban neighborhood, to the large colonial house that was her fortress. Her pearl-white SUV was in the driveway. She was home. I rang the doorbell, my heart a steady, cold drum. She opened it, a phone pressed to her ear. When she saw me, her eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed into slits of pure venom. "I'm on a call," she mouthed, starting to close the door. I put my hand on the door, not aggressively, but with undeniable firmness. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low and even. "It won't take long." Something in my tone, devoid of the hysteria she was expecting, made her pause. With an irritated sigh, she said a curt goodbye into her phone and swung the door open, gesturing me into her palatial, marble-floored foyer. "What do you want, Emily? Come to scream at me without an audience?" "No," I said calmly. "I came to return this." I held out the coloring book. She looked at it with disdain, not taking it. "I don't want that piece of trash." "I know you don't," I said. "That's the problem. You didn't want it, so you gave it to my daughter. You told me it was your daughter's, that she'd outgrown it. But that's not true, is it?" I walked past her, placing the book on a gleaming, sterile-looking console table. I opened it to the back cover and pointed to the small inscription. "Is this your daughter's handwriting? Or is it yours?" Olivia stared at the name, her own name, written in a child's hand. The mask of haughty indignation fell away, leaving behind a blank, stunned confusion. She slowly flipped through the pages, her manicured fingers tracing the outlines of a half-colored dragon. For a moment, she wasn't the imperious queen of her McMansion. She was just a woman staring at a ghost. "You are so busy planning your galas and your trips to Europe," I said, my voice not rising, but cutting through the silence of the cavernous house, "that you are literally throwing away your own past because you can't be bothered to look at what you're holding. This isn't about me being pathetic or ungrateful. This is about you being so profoundly careless that you used a piece of your own childhood as an insult." She looked up at me, her face pale, her eyes wide with a dawning horror that had nothing to do with me. The narrative she had so carefully crafted, of her own benevolence and my unhinged rage, had crumbled. The truth was far more pathetic. She was not a cruel mastermind. She was just empty. "You can tell the family whatever you want," I continued, turning toward the door. "You can tell your friends that I'm crazy, but you and I will know the truth. You owe me for a wedding cake, and you will stop this. You will call off your little campaign, or the next person I'll be talking to won't be you, but your husband." I wonder what he'd think of this story. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked out the door, leaving her standing alone in her marble foyer with the sad, forgotten relic of the little girl she used to be. As I closed the front door behind me, I didn't feel triumphant or vindictive. I felt a profound, aching sadness for her. But as I walked to my car, for the first time in days, I also felt light. The fire wasn't out, but I had taken back the matches. I had stood up not just for my daughter, but for myself, and I had done it without sacrificing my own dignity. The war was over, and in the quietest, most unexpected way, I had won.